Hi, Kellyanne. Good morning. Doing well. Can I ask you real quick about Venezuela, the economic embargo that the president just imposed? Can you explain why the president decided to go down that route, and was there any sort of tipping point that led him to this decision?
Well, tipping point is President Maduro, and the president's also warning China and Russia, if you continue to support his regime, that there could be consequences as well. But it's no surprise, the president has made very clear how he feels about Venezuela and who's the government that we recognize there.
Kellyanne, yesterday the president tweeted about background checks. He then didn't mention that in his remarks. What sort of gun measures does the president support?
Well, he made clear that he is looking at the red flag laws and, of course, is heartened by the bipartisan action being taken by Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, Dick Blumenthal, the Democrat of Connecticut. He's also spoken separately to Senators Manchin and Toomey about their background check legislation, and we're looking at all of that. So he is open to hearing from everyone, but we can't get our advice from people screaming on TV. Those who are elected to do their jobs here in Washington really should either return to Congress or come here to the White House to speak to the president about what can be done. None of that's going to be solved by them raising havoc or raising their profiles on TV just because they're mired at 0% or tied with the margin of error in the polls, raising money. I mean, I was really hopping mad, frankly, that Senator Elizabeth Warren yesterday is raising money off these tragedies on behalf of Senator Tina Smith in Minnesota and Senator Doug Jones of Alabama. Why are we doing that? Am I supposed to stand here and tell you it's been revealed overnight? I mean, I had already read it days ago, but kept my mouth shut. It's been confirmed overnight by CNN and others that it looks like this Dayton monster, the shooter in Ohio, had a leftist leanings in a Twitter feed that was complimentary of Antifa, complimentary of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Am I blaming them for the shooting? Of course not. I wouldn't do that any more than I would blame AOC for the fact that the guy who wanted to shoot up the ICE detention center just weeks ago in Washington State was parroting her language about concentration camps and ICE. I didn't blame Bernie Sanders for the fact that a Bernie Sanders supporter shot up Steve Scalise, who was within inches of his life 2 years ago on that baseball field, and others. Didn't blame him for that, even though the guy said, "I'm here to kill Republicans." I mean, this crap has to stop. And it would be nice if they came together in a bicameral, bipartisan way, as Leader McConnell and the president have asked them to do, and turn down the temperature. I'm very proud that I work for a president, we're all represented by a president who did not politicize this and respond in kind to those who immediately saw, were trying to spin gold and votes out of this tragedy. It's not right. It doesn't heal a single soul. It doesn't prevent another mass shooting. And he is working assiduously to listen to everybody's input.
So does the president want Mitch McConnell to call the Senate back into session?
Well, that's up to Leader McConnell and others in the Senate. I mean, around here where the president works constantly, we wonder why they leave for 6 weeks in the first place. But their constituents can ask them that question.
Kellyanne, it was during the government shutdown that the president called on lawmakers to come back to deal with the government shutdown. Why won't the president call on lawmakers from both parties to come back to deal with this responsibility right now?
Well, the president has asked the Congress to do many things, Pete, that they refuse to do, like fix the asylum laws, fix TVPRA, fix the Flores Agreement. They refuse to do that. They're so busy voting on impeachment resolutions, got 95 votes, wasn't a squeaker. So busy voting on resolutions to condemn his tweet. I mean, that's how they spent their time, and America sees the way they spend their time, what they do and what they don't.
So why not do it now?
Well, if you get it, you should report it more. So why don't they come back? We would welcome them to come back and start working on the people's business. Maybe, maybe not, but what's the difference? In other words, Speaker Pelosi's in charge of the House. I noticed she was at some 4 or 5 star resort or restaurant recently in Italy. I read that in one of your publications. She's welcome to come back and do the business for the people. I also read the Democrats have mixed feelings about returning because I'm sure they have other plans this summer. I'm sure that they're in their town hall meetings explaining why they've done absolutely nothing on drug pricing, on infrastructure, on keeping the economy humming along, on trade deals, on the USMCA, which should be up for a vote.
Republican Peter King is calling, alongside some Democrats, for the Senate to have a vote on a universal gun background check bill, already passed by the House. Will the president support that? Does he want a vote on that?
Well, the president doesn't vote in the Senate, but he stands ready to listen to different. He stands ready to listen to different actions. He retweeted today the majority leader's statement that came out yesterday afternoon about bicameral, bipartisan action. They're taking a look at many different measures. And this is like every other president who has said, I'm looking at different measures, but here we are. And at least this president last year signed the Fix NICS Act of 2018. He eliminated bump stocks after those were used in the Las Vegas shooting, a shooting where federal, state, and local law enforcement have never found a motive for that monster in Las Vegas. So I think the president spoke very unequivocally and very presidentially yesterday, while others who are trying to be president seem to be talking about politics and talking about the president, which makes no sense. And I'm sure you're going to give a lot of coverage today to the leftist sympathizer who had a rape list for girls, a kill list for boys many, many, many years ago in high school, and yet the whole see something, say something fell apart. And the local law enforcement couldn't even know this about him.
We agree that mental illness is a big issue.
The president has actually said he had some interest in background checks. He did it back in February of last year, again yesterday, and then he seemed to reverse course both
He's
times.
not reversing course. You missed my comments earlier, so I'll just repeat them, Joe. He didn't reverse course. He has said he's listening to all practical solutions, possible solutions. And just yesterday, I said before you got here, he talked to Senators Manchin and Toomey. He specifically wanted to include in his remarks red flag. He's tweeted about that. He talked about it yesterday, addressing a nation, if not a world. That's important because we're finding the balance between law-abiding citizens being able to carry firearms and keeping firearms out of violent criminals or would-be criminals.
So is it political realities? Is that what the president is facing? That he's not going to be able to get background checks through, so he decides, okay, I'm not going to go out and talk about this.
He didn't say that. I just said, no, he didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth or his, and be a little fairer today than your network has been of late to this president. He has said he's looking at background checks. And he has said, and I just said he talked to 2 senators yesterday who have a background check piece of legislation. So he's looking at that. He also has given credence and a very strong look to the red flag legislation that's being proposed by Senator Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, another bipartisan piece of legislation. So these things don't happen overnight. In fact, as far as I can see, they don't happen at all, even though past presidents have said, we're going to do something, we're going to do something, we're going to do something.
Kellyanne, let's put aside the motives for a second. You talk about law-abiding citizens. Does the president think that law-abiding citizens should have access to magazine clips that can carry 100 bullets?
The president has spoken about that in the past. The president will continue to speak about the Second Amendment and the difference between law-abiding citizens having that constitutional right, which has been upheld by the Supreme Court in the Heller decision, if you're not familiar, versus would-be criminals, mass shooters, people who are motivated by hate and bigotry and race. And I guess in the case of the Dayton, Ohio shooter, I'm sure you'll be covering this nonstop today, leftism and sympathy for Antifa. There are sick people out there who should not have firearms, and they need to be stopped, and people have to, local law enforcement, federal, state, they're working assiduously to do that. But we all have a job to do also. I think that we're calling upon each other also. If you see something, say something. We have to be able to stand up, even if it's a loved one, and say, I think this person has been threatening. They're going to shoot up the building one day, or they're going to cause problems. I mean, I read the story on CNN.com of all places in detail what this murderer, this monster in Dayton, Ohio was saying for years, threatening people, being very specific in text messages, in talk, in written lists. So the signs were there, but because of privacy or maybe because he was a juvenile, local law enforcement couldn't know that. And those who were looking at his background couldn't know that when he applied for a firearm and procured it legally.
We agree that mental illness is...
Pardon me?
Can you tell us about the president's trip to El Paso?
Well, what I can tell you is the president has wanted to go there since he learned of these tragedies, and he's able to move around this country. The Secret Service says that it's safe and ready. So you have seen this president on the ground with people, Parkland, Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada, and certainly victims of natural disasters as well, like the hurricanes. So he goes trying to help heal communities, meeting with those who are injured, those loved ones who have survived, the innocents who have lost their lives so senselessly and tragically. He meets with local law enforcement, federal law enforcement. He meets with medical professionals. He thanks first responders. So you see what he's done in the past, and you can expect that he will continue to do that as the president. I would also say he's working with his administration to seek maybe regulatory relief where Congress fails to act, isn't even in town while he's here working. And you heard Attorney General Barr, before these tragedies even happened, these latest tragedies even happened, talk about bringing back the death penalty. The president spoke yesterday about looking at the death penalty for these kinds of actions. We're very heartened and in agreement with the designation of what happened in El Paso as domestic terrorism, punishable by the death penalty. That's appropriate. Our own FBI has been working overtime prosecuting and arresting domestic terrorism cases, many which are fueled by white supremacy, other forms of hate, race-based hate as well, but including, not exclusively, but including white supremacy. So I think the president made very clear yesterday what he's thinking and inviting concrete steps. He went first. He issued a number of concrete steps yesterday, but now we need Congress to act. Much of this has to be done legislatively. In the absence of them legislating, he will be there to look at regulatory relief as well. Have a great day.
On mental illness, Kellyanne,
Thank you.